Usually, when we encounter an obstacle in life, our first instinct is to push.
Oh, absolutely.
Think of a door that's jammed.
Mm.
You push a little, it doesn't give, so you push harder.
Right.
You rattle the handle, you throw your whole shoulder into it, you start kicking the frame.
Yeah, and it's a completely biological reaction, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, when human beings meet resistance, the fight or flight response kicks in. And if we decide to fight, we default to brute force.
We just want to smash it.
Exactly. We assume the solution to a heavy object is just applying a heavier counterforce.
And it's loud, and it's exhausting, and half the time, you just end up with a bruised shoulder and a door that is still very much stuck.
Right, but then you encounter people who never seem to push at all.
Oh, I know those people.
They don't sweat, they don't yell, they just quietly assess the lock, slide the exact right key into the mechanism, give it a flick of the wrist, and the door just swings wide open.
It's like magic.
It feels like magic. And today, we are exploring a framework that is entirely about finding the key instead of bruising your shoulder.
Right.
It is a brilliant shift in perspective drawn from a single fascinating source document that details what's called the world of Cleopatra.
Okay, let's unpack this because we should clarify right off the bat to everyone listening that we aren't talking about a dusty history lesson here.
No, definitely not.
Like you aren't memorizing dates or mapping out ancient Mediterranean trade routes today.
Thank goodness.
Right. We're exploring a highly specific mindset, a complete blueprint built entirely on the idea that intelligence, charm, and strategy can turn your everyday relationships into incredible power.
Yeah, and the central thesis of this world flips our conventional understanding of power completely upside down.
How so?
Well, we're taught from a really young age that the loudest, physically strongest person in the room is the one in charge.
The playground bully model.
Exactly. But the core philosophy here is that while physical force or aggression might win a temporary skirmish, influence is what actually wins kingdoms.
Influence.
Right. The ultimate goal is to be someone who understands people so profoundly that they can move the world without ever raising a sword or, raising their voice.
So what does this all mean for the concept of strength?
That's the big question.
Because if you're trying to navigate a highly competitive environment, whether that's, trying to build a kingdom or honestly just trying to survive the social dynamics of middle school or high school, it feels like you need some kind of armor.
Sure.
Does this mean being strong doesn't matter at all in this world?
What's fascinating here is how this framework redefines what strength actually is.
Okay.
It's not that having power doesn't matter. It's that relying on physical force is seen as a remarkably inefficient, blunt instrument.
Maybe it's just a waste of energy.
Yes. Think of it like holding down a compressed spring. If you force someone to do what you want through intimidation or authority, you have to constantly expend energy to keep that spring pressed down.
Oh, right. Because they're pushing back.
Exactly. The absolute second you turn your back or lose your leverage, that spring pops back up. They stop complying.
Because they never actually wanted to do it in the first place. You were just making them.
Precisely. But if you use intelligence and influence to align their desires with yours, you aren't holding down a spring anymore.
You've changed the game.
You've fundamentally changed the mechanism. You've created a situation where they actively want to push in the same direction you are going.
Wow.
That is why the core belief in this world is that intelligence opens doors that weapons or anger simply cannot. Power here is earned through influence, not demanded through a megaphone.
Which, that fundamentally changes the rules of engagement for how people interact with each other.
That changes everything.
If you are operating under the assumption that you need to align someone else's desires with your own, you can't just be a manipulator.
No, not at all.
And the blueprint points out something crucial about alliances in this world. They are never built on trickery.
Right.
They are built entirely on mutual advantage. Everyone has to get something good out of the deal.
And that is the engine that makes the whole system run. We often mistake strategic thinking for villainy,
Like using people as pawns?
Yeah, using people and just discarding them. But a true, enduring alliance in this world requires that everyone walks away with something tangible.
It has to be a win-win.
It has to be. If the other person isn't getting their needs met, they have no logical reason to maintain the alliance. And then your influence evaporates.
Because loyalty isn't a charity.
Exactly.
It's an exchange.
Well.
And to figure out what that mutual advantage is, to figure out what the other person actually values, requires an incredible amount of patience.
So much patience.
Sure. You can't just walk up to someone and declare what the mutually beneficial deal is going to be. So control in this world isn't achieved by being bossy or dictating terms. It's achieved entirely through timing.
Timing is arguably the most critical skill in this entire framework.
Really. More than just being smart.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You could have the most brilliant, mutually beneficial idea in the world, but if you present it when the other person is stressed, defensive, or distracted, it will fail.
They won't even hear you.
Right. You have to wait for the friction in the room to drop.
It reminds me of jumping into a fast-moving game of double Dutch jump rope.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
You have two ropes spinning in opposite directions, and you can't just bulldoze your way in whenever you feel a surge of confidence.
Yeah, you'll get tangled.
Yeah, if you just charge forward, you will trip, the ropes tangle, and the game is over.
Game over.
You have to stand on the edge, patiently read the rhythm of the room, watch the arc of the ropes, and make your move at the exact right millisecond when the space opens up for you.
That jump rope analogy perfectly describes how you have to view human conversations.
Yeah.
Because cognitive load is a real thing. When people are overwhelmed or just dug into their own ideas, their brains literally do not have the capacity to process your brilliant proposal.
So you have to wait.
You have to watch the ropes. You wait for the sigh, the moment of hesitation, or maybe a complaint about a problem they can't solve.
That's your opening.
That is the opening in the jump rope. That is when your entry matches their rhythm.
But, to catch that millisecond opening, you have to be paying an almost exhausting amount of attention.
You really do.
Which leads to how people actually live in Cleopatra's world day to day. To survive here, you are essentially a full-time student of human nature.
You are.
You don't just exist in a room. You actively and deeply study the people and the situations around you.
They are running a constant background process of observation.
That's scanning the room.
Exactly. Most people just listen to the literal words someone is saying. But a practitioner of this mindset listens to the tone, the pacing, the physical posture.
Oh, wow.
They notice when someone's voice tightens. They notice who looks at who when a difficult question is asked. They are gathering behavioral data constantly.
And because they're gathering data, they can't be broadcasting all the time.
Right.
The blueprint highlights that people in this world speak with absolute purpose and precision. There is no mindless chattering.
Which is incredibly difficult to do.
It's so hard. When most of us get nervous or when there's an awkward silence, our instinct is to babble. We fill the dead air because silence feels awkward.
But silence is actually one of the most potent tools you can wield.
Really?
Yeah, because when you stop rushing to fill the silence, other people will almost always rush to fill it for you.
They can't stand the quiet either.
Right. And when they do that, they reveal their anxieties, their priorities, and their actual desires. The underlying mechanic that keeps this world working relies heavily on emotional intelligence and empathy.
Okay, empathy.
But it's empathy used as a radar system.
Right. It's not empathy just for the sake of feeling sad when someone else feels sad.
No, not at all.
It's empathy as a tool for comprehension. You put yourself in their shoes so you can accurately map out what their win looks like in that mutual advantage equation.
Exactly. And that data gathering requires what the framework calls discretion and careful use of information.
Which is rare these days.
Very rare. We live in a culture that encourages oversharing. If we know a secret or figure out some leverage, the temptation is to immediately show it off to prove how smart we are.
We want the credit.
But in this world, information is a highly regulated currency. You don't spend it just to boost your own ego. Knowing when to keep a secret is given the exact same weight as knowing what to say.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if we pause for a second, this whole list, studying people's twitches, using silence as a weapon, hoarding information, it can start to sound very cold.
It can sound a bit calculating.
Yeah, almost robotic. But the framework specifically states that they use charm as a strategic advantage, and they actually highly value fierce, genuine loyalty.
And this raises an important point about the line between strategic charm and just like sociopathic manipulation.
Right. What is the difference?
The distinction lies in the delivery and the intent. Charm, in Cleopatra's world, isn't about putting on a fake voice or lying to people.
So it's real.
It is. True charm is the ability to make the person in front of you feel like they are the only person in the room. It is about making others feel seen, valued, and understood.
And people love that.
They do. When you observe someone deeply and then speak directly to their actual unspoken needs, it feels like magic to them.
Because so rarely in life does anyone actually pay attention to us.
Exactly.
When someone finally does, it's incredibly intoxicating.
Yeah.
And that creates genuine loyalty.
You aren't tricking them into being loyal.
No, you're providing a level of understanding and security that they just cannot find anywhere else. You protect your allies fiercely, and in return, they become the shield wall that protects you.
It's an ecosystem of mutual protection.
Yeah.
But it's worth asking, what is the driving force behind building this complex ecosystem?
Right. Why go to all this trouble?
Why exert the intense mental discipline required to never lose your temper, always wait for the right timing, constantly observe? The blueprint paints a very clear picture of the ultimate desires of the people operating in this mindset.
Yeah, and they are not playing small.
Not at all.
They have incredibly high standards for their existence. They want to be admired and respected, but not just from afar.
They crave proximity to power.
They want to be the ones quietly influencing the decisions that shape the broader world. They want a seat at the table.
Because proximity to power provides security, which is their other massive driving desire.
Safety in a chaotic world.
Right. They want to secure wealth and absolute stability.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just survival or hoarding resources.
Mm-hmm.
They want to elevate their existence.
They want the finer things.
Yes. They are driven by the desire to experience beauty, luxury, and absolute refinement.
And the visual imagery used in the source to describe this mindset is breathtaking.
It really paints a picture.
It perfectly reflects that desire for refinement. Just picture this, a breathtaking sunset over the Nile River.
Beautiful.
The water is catching the light, glowing like liquid gold. Along the banks, there are massive, ancient stone obelisks stretching up into the sky.
Yeah.
Ships with large, pristine white sails are gliding silently across the water. And you are observing all of this from a cool, shaded marble balcony that is just overflowing with incredibly fragrant, blooming lilies.
It's a very deliberate aesthetic.
It's stunning.
And it's a world that understands that beauty and refinement are, in themselves, forms of soft power.
Oh, that makes sense.
When you cultivate an environment of extreme order and aesthetic perfection, it commands an automatic level of respect and deference from anyone who steps into your space.
You feel intimidated, but in a good way.
It disarms people. It visually communicates that you are in absolute control of your surroundings.
And the ultimate icon of this world, the symbol that perfectly encapsulates everything we've talked about so far, is this intricate cobra bracelet.
The cobra is the perfect biological metaphor for this entire philosophy.
Think about how a cobra operates in the wild.
It isn't a creature that runs around the jungle picking random fights.
It doesn't roar.
No, it stays perfectly quiet. It blends into its environment and observes everything.
Just waiting.
It possesses immense lethal power, but it actively conserves that energy. It only ever strikes when the timing is absolutely mathematically perfect.
It is the ultimate manifestation of avoiding blunt force. The cobra doesn't try to wrestle its prey. It waits for the one precise moment where a single, calculated movement finishes the job entirely.
And preserving that energy is necessary because their ultimate goal extends far beyond the present moment.
They want to leave a legacy.
They want their influence to outlast their physical lifespan. They want to be remembered long after they are gone, to build something as enduring as those stone obelisks.
Right.
To achieve that kind of permanent legacy, the framework demands two final psychological traits: absolute adaptability in changing circumstances and clear, long-term vision.
Because you cannot build a legacy if your emotional state is bouncing up and down based on what happened 10 minutes ago.
You'd never get anywhere.
You have to be playing a game that stretches years into the future.
Yeah.
And thankfully, this isn't just theoretical philosophy.
No, there's a practical side.
The blueprint gives us a highly specific 5-step process for how a practitioner of this world actually grows their influence and turns these ideas into reality.
This is where the mindset translates into an actionable algorithm. It's how you take the abstract concept of the cobra and apply it to, a Tuesday morning meeting.
Exactly. So here is the specifics formula. Step 1, learn and observe.
The foundation.
Before you change anything, before you introduce yourself, before you make a proposal, just watch. Gather the data.
Right.
Step 2, build trust. You don't ask for a favor on day 1. You demonstrate that you are reliable and observant.
Decrypt your value.
Step 3, create alliances. You find that puzzle piece where their needs and your needs lock together perfectly for mutual advantage.
The win-win?
Step 4, influence decisions. Now that you have trust and an alliance, you use that leverage to start quietly steering the ship.
Gently guiding things.
And step 5, consolidate power. You secure the gains you've made, reinforce the loyalty of your allies, and stabilize your new position before you reach for the next rung on the ladder.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the profound takeaway of that 5-step sequence is the pacing.
It's not rushed.
Nothing happens overnight. The world goes through one insight, one carefully timed conversation, and one strategically built alliance at a time.
Step by step.
It is a slow, deliberate expansion from a local court out into the wider world beyond.
Let's bring this completely down to earth, to your everyday life.
Okay, idea.
Imagine you are thrown into a tricky group project at school, or maybe a disorganized committee at work or something.
Everyone's been there.
Nobody agrees on the topic, 2 people are trying to talk over each other, 1 person is checked out entirely, and it is just a stressful, chaotic mess.
The default human reaction in that scenario is to revert back to force.
Oh yeah, getting mad.
You either raise your voice to shout down the loudest person,
Yeah.
or you aggressively take on all the work yourself, slamming your laptop keys and building a massive wall of resentment.
We've all done the angry tembing.
Absolutely.
But let's run that exact same chaotic scenario through the 5-step blueprint.
Okay.
Step 1, learn and observe. Instead of jumping into the argument, you physically lean back. You stay quiet and watch the ropes.
Just listen.
You realize Sarah is arguing because she's terrified of public speaking, and Mark is checked out because he thinks his ideas always get ignored. You gather the data.
You've diagnosed the actual friction in the room, rather than just reacting to the noise.
Step 2, build trust. You validate them. You look at Mark and say, hey, that idea you mentioned 5 minutes ago was actually really solid. Can we look at that?
You've made him feel seen.
Step 3, create alliances. You find the mutual advantage. You pull Sarah aside and say, listen, if you handle the research and organize the slides, which you are amazing at, I will do all the public speaking so you don't have to say a single word during the presentation.
It's a flawless execution of the win-win.
Exactly.
You've removed her biggest source of anxiety. You aren't forcing her to participate. You've given her a pathway to participate that she genuinely desires.
And now she is fiercely loyal to your plan.
Right.
Which makes step 4 incredibly easy. Influence decisions. Now that Mark feels respected and Sarah is relieved, when you suggest the final topic for the project, they are both going to back you up immediately.
You steer the ship.
And finally, step 5, consolidate power. You finish the project, you make sure Mark and Sarah get public credit for their specific contributions, and the next time a project comes around, they actively want you to be the leader.
You completely dismantled a chaotic dynamic and restructured it to your advantage.
And you never once had to raise your voice.
You didn't pull rank. You used emotional intelligence, precise timing, and the promise of mutual advantage to create an environment where everyone got what they wanted. But you ultimately guided the final outcome.
You became the person who understands the mechanics of the room so perfectly that you moved the whole group without ever having to push.
It's brilliant.
Whether it's a school project, navigating a difficult friend group, trying to agree on weekend plans without a massive text thread argument, this blueprint works.
It really does.
Observe, build trust, find the mutual advantage, and use your influence.
It is a remarkable reminder that true strength isn't about volume or intimidation. It's about comprehension. When you cultivate the discipline to sit in silence, to truly see the people around you, and to map out their underlying motivations and fears, you unlock a level of capability that brute force can never achieve. Force creates resistance. Influence creates momentum.
Which brings us to the core truth of this whole deep dive. The most powerful tool you have isn't force or volume, but your ability to deeply understand and connect with other people.
We spend so much of our lives absorbing the cultural myth that to change the world, or even just our own little corner of it, we need to be a loud warrior leading a charge.
Breaking the door down.
Right, breaking the door down. But if the world of Cleopatra is right, and if influence truly is greater than force, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder today.
What is it?
Think about one locked door in your life right now. A complicated relationship, a stalled goal, a situation you've been exhaustingly trying to force open with absolutely no luck.
We all have one of those.
How easily might that exact same door swing wide open if you simply stopped pushing, took a step back to observe, found a mutual advantage, and used a little strategic charm.
Wow. Sometimes the key has been sitting in our pocket the whole time. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Cleopatra.
It's been great.
We hope it gave you a completely new perspective on how to navigate the obstacles in your own world. Keep observing, keep learning, and we will catch you on the next one.